We trust that your participation here today reflects a readiness to stand with us in full. That will require, for example, our European partners to join the United States in taking action against Iran.
500,000 Americans dead, not from war, not from a foreign army invading our shores, from drugs and the money funding those drugs, the money funding terrorism, the money keeping the world's most violent networks alive. Doesn't lead to Tehran, doesn't lead to Moscow, it leads to London. Today, for the first time in modern American history, a sitting U.S. Treasury Secretary stood in front of the world's most powerful finance ministers and told them there are no more excuses. But here's what the mainstream media won't tell you. When Scott Bessant talked about shell companies in Europe, shadow banking networks across the Middle East, drug cartels across the Western Hemisphere, he wasn't just talking about Iran, he was talking about a 200-year-old empire that has used terrorism, drugs, and financial manipulation as weapons of war. And today, that empire is finally in the crosshairs. I'm going to show you exactly how this works. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, everything you thought you knew about the war on terror is going to look very different. Let's start with what actually happened in Paris. On May 19, 2025, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessant addressed the G7 finance ministers meeting, a gathering that's supposed to be about economic policy, trade balances, inflation. But Bessant didn't come to talk about interest rates. He came to deliver a message. He told the assembled finance ministers that the era of looking the other way is over. He named 3 specific targets. Number 1, shell companies embedded within Europe. Number 2, shadow banking networks lurking across the Middle East. Number 3, drug cartels across the Western Hemisphere. Now here's where it gets interesting. The official press narrative says this was all about Iran, and yes, Iran is on the sanctions list. But when you pull up the actual OFAC designations, that's the Office of Foreign Assets Control, the U.S. Treasury's sanctions enforcement arm, the addresses don't all point to Tehran. Many of them point to London. Let me give you some specific examples that have been publicly designated in recent months. Mousavi, a Hezbollah financing network. London address, Thriving Times International, an exchange house network used for sanctions evasion. London address, Global Fortune Shipping Limited, an oil tanker company. London address, Science Obedient International Company Limited, another LNG tanker operation. London address, Sparkling Courage Limited, yet another tanker. Registered in the British Virgin Islands, a UK overseas territory. These aren't coincidences, these are a pattern. And the pattern gets even clearer when you look at a meeting that happened before Paris. When Bessant sat down with British Chancellor Rachel Reeves in Washington, she was the only finance minister who received a specific personal warning about Operation Economic Fury, the Treasury's initiative targeting Iran's financing networks. Think about that for a second. Out of every finance minister in the G7, the British Chancellor got a private warning. Why? Because the City of London, not the British government necessarily, but the financial architecture that operates out of London, has been the plumbing through which Iran's money has flowed for decades. Now here's where the story gets explosive. At the exact same time Bessant was putting London on notice in Paris, the White House released its new national counterterrorism strategy. And buried inside that document was a paragraph that should have been front-page news everywhere. But it wasn't. And we're going to tell you exactly why. Here is what it says, and I want you to listen carefully. President Trump knows that all modern jihadi groups, from Al-Qaeda to ISIS to Hamas, can trace their roots back to one organization, the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood is the root of all modern Islamist terrorism, predicated on recreating the Muslim caliphate and killing or enslaving non-Muslims. The President of the United States just identified the Muslim Brotherhood as the single source, the root, of all modern Islamic terrorism. Al-Qaeda, Brotherhood; ISIS, Brotherhood; Hamas, Brotherhood. But here's the question nobody in the corporate media is asking. If the Muslim Brotherhood is the root, who planted the seed? To understand this, we need to go back to 1928, Ismailia, Egypt. At that time, Ismailia was home to 2 major British institutions. The British Suez Canal Company, which controlled one of the most strategically vital waterways in the world, and a significant British military presence. It was in this British-controlled city that Hassan al-Banna founded the Muslim Brotherhood. And here's the detail that changes everything. The British Suez Canal Company helped finance and build the mosque that became the Muslim Brotherhood's headquarters and base of operations. This isn't conspiracy theory. This is documented history. 2 books I'd strongly recommend. Robert Dreyfuss, Devil's Game, How the United States Helped Unleash Fundamentalist Islam, and Mark Curtis, Secret Affairs, Britain's Collusion with Radical Islam. Curtis is particularly important. He's a former research fellow at Chatham House. That's Britain's most prestigious foreign policy think tank. He used the British government's own declassified Foreign Office files to show direct British government ties to the Egyptian, Lebanese, and Jordanian branches of the Muslim Brotherhood. Now, here's where it connects directly to Trump's executive orders. The Trump administration has specifically designated 3 branches of the Muslim Brotherhood as foreign terrorist organizations: Egypt, Jordan, and Lebanon. Those exact 3 branches. The same 3 that appear in British government declassified files as British operational assets, built, funded, and deployed by London. And when journalist Mark Curtis filed Freedom of Information requests asking for details about Britain's more recent contacts with the Brotherhood, not the 1940s, not the Cold War, but recent contacts, the British Foreign Office refused. The stated reason? The public interest, their interest, not yours, because London built the network, London used the network, and London is still actively concealing what it does with the network today. Now let's talk about the other weapon, the one that has killed more Americans than every war we've fought since World War II combined: drugs. The May 2025 National Drug Control Strategy released by the White House contained a staggering statistic. Over the past 5 years, nearly 500,000 Americans have died from drug overdoses and poisoning, more than the combined American military losses of World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan. Read that again. More than all of those wars combined. The administration isn't treating this as a law enforcement problem anymore. They're treating it as war, because that's what it is. And here's the history that makes this make sense. The British Empire's use of narcotics as a strategic weapon goes back to the Opium Wars of the 1840s, when Britain literally fought wars to force China to accept opium imports. Not because Britain needed trade, because addicted populations are controllable populations. That doctrine never went away. It just got privatized and outsourced. The financial architecture that launders cartel money and the offshore shell companies, the correspondent banking relationships, the British Virgin Islands accounts, that architecture runs through the same City of London institutions that appear on Scott Bessant's sanctions list. Now, here's what's actually happening on the ground right now, and it's moving fast. In just the past few weeks, the administration has landed 3 massive blows against cartel networks. Hit number 1, Trendy Aragua. For the first time in history, a member of a foreign terrorist organization was extradited from Latin America on terrorism charges and landed in Houston, Texas. Colombia handed him over. Colombia, the same country that for decades slow-walked extraditions, that made deals, that looked the other way, delivered a TDA leader directly to face federal terrorism prosecution. That's what happens when the United States stops making excuses and starts applying real pressure. Hit number 2, La Familia Nunca Muere. On May 18th, a federal grand jury in Puerto Rico handed down 23 indictments against the entire La Familia Nunca Muere operation. The name means the family that never dies. Well, it looks like it died this week. Prosecutors used RICO, the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organization statute, to charge the entire enterprise as one organization, from the leadership down to the street-level shooters, taken out in a single indictment. That's not law enforcement. That's strategic dismantlement. Hit number 3, a sitting governor indicted. The sitting governor of Sinaloa, Ruben Rocha Moya, was indicted by the Southern District of New York. The allegation: El Chapo's sons kidnapped Rocha Moya's political rivals to help get him elected governor. In exchange, he gave the cartels free reign over the state. Think about the significance of that. The United States is no longer just indicting drug traffickers. We are now indicting the political infrastructure that makes the cartel system possible. And the Mexican government itself responded. Mexico's own financial intelligence unit froze Rocha Moya's bank accounts, his children's accounts, and his senior aides. Mexico also approved a new intelligence sharing arrangement. The FBI, DEA, ATF, Homeland Security, and Customs and Border Protection are now operating inside a Mexican state security building. FBI Director Kash Patel made clear what this means. When we take out Tren de Aragua's senior-most leader, we're helping the Colombians make sure they don't have one of the worst terrorist organizations on the planet in their backyard anymore. We're going to continue to extrapolate on their networks and arrest everyone and anyone that was involved with it. Kicking open this door that President Trump has done has allowed us to capture 8 of the top 10 most wanted in the FBI's charts in 1 year. 8 of the top 10 most wanted in 1 year. So let's connect the dots. Scott Bessant goes to Paris and tells the world's finance ministers no more excuses, and specifically targets shell companies in Europe, shadow banking in the Middle East, and drug cartels in the Western Hemisphere. The OFAC sanctions list points, address by address, at the City of London. The White House counterterrorism strategy identifies the Muslim Brotherhood as the root of all modern Islamic terrorism. Declassified British government documents confirm that the Egyptian, Jordanian, and Lebanese branches of the Brotherhood, the exact 3 Trump designated as terrorist organizations, were British operational assets. And the drug war is finally being treated as an actual war, targeting not just traffickers, but the political and financial infrastructure that makes trafficking possible. This isn't about Iran. Iran is a proxy, a tool, a convenient enemy to justify sanctions that, if you follow them carefully, point somewhere else entirely. The real target is a 200-year-old financial and intelligence architecture centered in the City of London that has run drugs, funded terrorism, destabilized nations, and profited from perpetual conflict since the days of the British East India Company. And for the first time in living memory, an American administration is going after it, not with speeches, but with indictments, sanctions, designations, and extraditions. The empire is used to hiding in the shadows. It is not used to being seen. This is going to keep moving fast. Every week, there are new designations, new indictments, new revelations. If you want to stay ahead of what's actually happening, not what CNN or Fox tells you is happening, then you need to be subscribed to this channel right now. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and drop a comment below. Tell me, did you know about the British connection to the Muslim Brotherhood? Because most Americans have never heard this story. Share this video with someone who needs to understand what's really going on, not the surface level narrative, the real story underneath. I'll see you in the next one.